Hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar on how to run a business and not a building firm. There's a difference. You might be thinking, well, I'm running a building firm, therefore I'm a business. I'm a business person, aren't I? But actually, what we found here at HBXL is that's not actually the case. And what we want to talk to you about today is how to transform yourself from being a builder, running a builder's perhaps slightly hand to mouth, to running a business with a bit of construction on the side. So you've got a mindset change here that we're going to be talking about. And that difference is indeed important. So I'm going to introduce us today. So let me introduce my colleague, Allan, who is one of the HBXL team and an account manager. And he's been with us for over 8 years now. So welcome, Matt, to today's session.
Thank you.
Matt knows the software inside and out, and to top it off, his father was a general builder as well, so he knows the kind of trials and tribulations and stresses that go with running a building firm, so he's very familiar with that. And I do understand that Matt is a bit of a construction buff himself, building his own extension and what have you, and renovation works for his own property, so he knows software and the game. So we've got lots to talk to us about today. And my name's Jo Mulgrew, and I'm the Operations Director for HBXL, and I've been with the company for over 20 years now, and I've helped oversee it transition from a very small company of just a couple of people to the larger company that we are today. I say that we've still got our family roots. You know, there's many family members that within the business, which keeps us very focused on the SME builder, the small to medium sized builder. My father also was a builder and property developer himself for well over 20 years. So again, from the other side, I know a lot about what it's like running a firm, and I've renovated 3 houses myself. So a little bit of experience between Matt and I to talk to you about today. So having had a lot of conversations with Matt over recent days, there's lots of issues that face builders running their firms. Quite obviously, there's not enough hours in the day. Whatever firm you run, there's never enough hours in the day. But it's particularly focused, for construction firms, because you're moving around site to home to office continuously. You've probably got a couple of projects on, if not more, at the same time as well. So never enough hours in the day to get things straight. Really tight margins in construction, and tighter again today. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's very easy to lose control of what's going on within the business. Just keeping your eye on what's happening is really quite tough when you've got so much going on. A lot of paperwork involved as well. Constant firefighting, which I know is, it's tough going running a building firm. And it's even worse right now, isn't it? It's compounded right now with so much that you'll have seen in the press and no doubt experiencing with every single project that you're running right now. Really long lead times on materials, rising costs. You know, we all know that timber's gone up 50–60% in the last 12 months on plastics, on lead, on so many different products, on PIR. How on earth do you stay on top of all of this? Again, compounded with shortage of labour, and that's causing issues because it's allowing subcontractors to charge it, more because they're in demand. Add on top of that COVID compliance, and that costs, costs not only time but in real pounds and pence. The costs of the measures, and juggling the jobs through kind of the lockdowns that have been coming and going. It's tough. It's tough out there. So, you can be forgiven for running, your building firm, your building company, a bit more kind of hand to mouth, just get on with the next job and the next job. What we're talking about today is about, as I said before, changing a mindset. You're running a company focused on building rather than focusing on a business that does building. And if you don't, you're not going to be making the rewards from your company as you deserve. A business, if you think about your company as a business, it should have a business plan. It all starts with the plan. It could be a short plan for 12 months, or you could be thinking longer. What do I want to do in 3 years, say, or 5 years? Where do I want to transition myself to? And even if you're not like super entrepreneurial and you're not thinking huge and you're going to take over the world, you still, I'm sure, have got an internal plan of what you want to be doing, what kind of work you'd like to be working on, where geographically do you want to be focusing, when do you want to retire, how much do you want to put in the bank for holidays and a new car and so on. So a business plan is essential. It's where it starts, and that tees really tightly into your finances, your business finances, and making sure that things are looking healthy. Again, you wouldn't be alone. A recent survey on SME businesses in the Southwest was showing that over half of firms were experiencing cash flow issues off the back of the multiple lockdowns. Now, I know construction has generally been pretty lucky and have been able to carry on through the kind of second lockdown and the third lockdown. But obviously, there was a whole quarter last year with lockdown 1 that we were all forced to stop unless you could work from home. And clearly, with construction, you can't really stop everything and do it from home. So it's put real stresses and strains on finance, and some of the support that was available is started to ebb away from the government in terms of helping prop up businesses as we move forward. I know, however, loads of you watching this are going to be super busy. So you're perhaps thinking, well, that's not an issue for me. I've got loads of work coming on. But is it profitable work? And are you taking account of all of these rising costs? So we'll talk about this in a moment. Clearly, you've got to be thinking legal and compliance as well. Starting every project as you mean to go on with the right documentation in place, a contract with your client, a contract with your subcontractor, so your friendly competitor doesn't nick your subbies partway through the job by offering them a higher price. Having some flexibility with your customer to review pricing when there's significant inflation. Clearly, getting your compliance sorted for your health and safety, really important. I read an article about a slightly bigger firm than perhaps some of you viewing today, but there was a whole sweep of COVID cases through a construction firm, which basically shut the whole business down for 2 or 3 weeks whilst it kind of worked its way through the system. Clearly, we're all concerned about the health and well-being of our staff, of our employees, of our subcontractors. But from the business health perspective, crikey, if you've got to shut down for 3 weeks and stop down tools, and you've still got all these people to pay and a client on your back, there's issues. So keeping your COVID compliance right now is really important. Business is also made up of customer service. What do I mean by that? Answering your phone for number one. A lot of building firms have a phone that just rings out, and Matt will be, very familiar with that situation, talking to builders, and the phone just ringing out and not having a PA type either answer phone message or literally going through to a PA service to take calls. From about £50 a month, you can get PA service to answer all of your calls and sound professional rather than it just ringing out. Customer service is also about doing things when you said you were going to do them, responding appropriately, and having the right people on site. I think, Matt, you mentioned to me before about having the right representatives on the ground. So they're representing you, so you need the right people there to be taking questions from other subcontractors or the client.
Absolutely, because if you have a business running on recommendation, your guys on site, if you are going to be running a business away from that site, you're not going to have a view of everything that's going on. So you want to make sure you have the right team, a professional team on site, making sure that they're not actually being detrimental to your professional and company view, really. Yes,
yeah. I guess so that links us in neatly, actually, to the personnel management. And I guess expanding on that, having the people there at the right time with the deliveries that are meant to be coming, making sure that you know where everybody should be. And that's tough, especially when there's lots of slipping and sliding with build programs and so on. And extra tough right now with these delays on deliveries and so on. And also a business is made up of marketing, how you present yourselves. A lot of you will probably think, well, I get a lot of referrals. My business is made up of referrals. Well, that's great that your reputation is so good that you're getting that. But it also does tend to keep you, as our partners Better Business Group have said to me before, in a bit of a rut. You only get them referred for the same kind of jobs. You don't kind of change your game. You don't think about bigger projects, better projects, or even being able to reprice the work, because if you get a referral from someone who's referred you to the neighbour, they know what they paid, so they're not going to pay over the odds because everyone knows what each of us paid. So a referral is both a positive and a negative. So thinking about your marketing to actually go up a gear in terms of the work that you take on and where you see yourself is integral to all businesses. And I actually trained in marketing in my background. And before I joined HBXL. And for me, marketing is everything. It's not just about advertising. It's not just about, appearing on Facebook. It's about the whole business approach. It's how you do things. It's a customer-oriented approach, a client-oriented approach to how you do everything. So a business is made up of all of these things with a bit of construction. I'm sure you think, everyone listening, oh my God, it's all about the construction. It's all about the building. I have no time for thinking about anything else. But actually, to run a healthy business, a successful business, you probably need to have a think about tipping that the other way, or at least allowing yourself the time to have a think about these things. So high-flying businesses, so successful businesses, in essence, have a plan. They are planning for the future. They are also going digital. That means they have a good use of technology within the business, and they use it to best advantage to be successful. So we'll be talking to you, obviously, today about how we can help you with that area. High-flying businesses also have smart, I don't know what that means, smart admin processes, and a tight grip on finances. They know where their money is, and they always have a bit tucked away for the blips that occur in the marketplace. Oh, I preempted myself. Yeah, money in the bank. Policies and procedures in place, as I've said, a strong project management approach, and people in charge of the projects. And if that's you, because you're the owner, proprietor, then that means obviously improving your game. And as we've said, having a strong marketing presence. So a healthy business starting with a plan. Where do you want to be in 1 to 5 years? I know that seems probably quite a way off, but a lot of you do know what you want. So it's about putting in place how you're going to get there. It's a strategy for the coming years. At the very least, develop a business forecast for at least the next 12 months. What do you want to do over the next 12 months? We have on the HBXL website, and at the end of this session today, I'll be sending you a link or posting a link to where you can download a business forecast spreadsheet, where you can key in your costs and your revenues, your likely revenues. Why is that important? Well, you need to get an overall view of all of your business overheads, whether or not you're building or not. Now, you'll have experienced this with lockdown 1, that the costs roll on whether or not you're doing any building whatsoever. So you've got your van insurance, you've got your phone, you've got your internet, you might have some website costs, you've got your other vehicles. There's so much that goes into to running a business. Clearly, then there is the actual construction costs. But every project that you undertake, you've got to allow an element of the business overhead. So it starts with understanding your business overheads, whether you do nothing, whether you do no building, but you're just there running your shell of a company, on top of which you then need to build in the projects that you're going to take on and apply, as I said before, an element of your business overheads. That can be as simple as, if you know it costs you, I don't know, £40,000 to run your company, whether you do nothing, you then need to look at that as a weekly cost and then apply that to each week of your projects. If you've got multiple projects on the go, it's obviously slightly more complicated because you might want to divide that over those projects. But at least you need to know, if I do nothing else, what is my weekly cost of running the business. So only when you've got that and then your construction costs, then add your profit margin on top. A lot of firms that we talk to simply slap on a profit margin to the job cost. They say, right, well, the job cost is, I don't know, 50K, and I'm going to add 15% or 10% profit on that. It's a really dangerous game because you completely missed all your business overheads. So you need to think about construction cost plus business overhead, then add the profit margin. And there's a really good presentation on this that we'll have a link to at the end of this again, which talks about profit forecasting and how to do that effectively and make what you thought you were going to make. So do look out for that one. So that probably all sounds a bit daunting, and overwhelming. Where the hell do I actually start? But HBXL can help. And how can we help? Well, we have an integrated set of business solutions to help you manage your day-to-day. So we have a range of products. So we have CAD, which is a software product to help you design your building plans and 3D models. We have an estimating toolkit to help you price the work and schedule all of your labour, your materials, your subcontractors, sundry, and produce a really nice quote for your client. We have our health and safety software to help you with your general compliance and also COVID compliance. Building contracts between you and your client and you and your subcontractors. And we have a project management solution to help you manage your work, not juggle, but manage. And we also integrate with an external accounting product called Construction Industry Accounts, which is integrated with our estimating solution to help you stay on top of your costs. So by the end of the year, you make what you expected. So we have a set of products, and the key word there is integrated. So I wanted to talk to you about that in a minute, about why that's going to help and what that can save. But firstly, just to get my little sales pitch in there, it's obviously going to help you win. You might say, do you know what? I'm winning work. It's coming out of my eyeballs right now. But is it the right work? Is it the work that is going to enable you to put money in the bank? Are you going to profit from the boom that you're seeing right now? So the software is not only going to give you a better odds at winning work, but it's going to be better work because you've got a more professional approach. You can present yourself to charge more so that you can benefit from this current positive marketplace. In order to do that, you've obviously got to estimate properly and professionally, and our software will enable you to do that, but with less time on the numbers, because a lot of it is automated through the software, and we'll see that from Matt today. The software means less time on paperwork. Let's face it, nobody running a building firm ever joined the game to do paperwork. In fact, I never joined HBXL to do paperwork, and I do a hell of a lot of it. Nevertheless, something that's got to be done. We've got to get our heads down and do it sometimes. But the software with its integration means there's a lot less time needed on the paper side of things. And we'll see again through Matt just why that's so in a minute. And this is cheesily, I know, going to allow you to do more of what you do best. A lot of you want to manage those projects well. You want to be out there building, not stuck behind your desk. And evidently, we all want a better work-life balance. And I know with it being so busy right now, I mean, Matt, you're probably hearing this. People are working really long days right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, out from first thing, back home 7 or 8 o'clock at night. While that is lighter, obviously people are still building later. And on the weekends, there's no let up, no let up. I really feel for people right now running a building company. It's frenetic. So what's the secret? Again, it sounds another cheesy slide, but X Connects is about connectivity. It's about data sharing. That means each of the software products talks to the next product in the suite. Again, Matt's going to show us this in a minute. So, for example, the data that's developed in the Plans Express software product that we're going to see in a minute, that's our CAD software. It then seamlessly passes all of that information about all the dimensions that are on that plan, all the specified elements on it. So what the walls are, what the roof is, what the windows and doors are, and so on. It passes all of that information in a nice, neat package into the next product, which will be Estimator Express, to price that project. And from there, once Estimator Express has done its number crunching for you automatically, is then available to pass on to your building contract. So you then get a contract drafted up for you almost instantly for the project, together with your stage payment. And on top of that, it passes it to your health and safety software. So with Health and Safety Expert, you instantly get all the paperwork that you need for your project off the back of that. And then onwards into our project management software so that you can manage it. So from that one set of data developed at the plan, or even in the estimating software, you then get the benefit throughout all the other products. So managing your business doesn't have to be an absolute fat and a game. If you start kind of digitizing your product your project rather in the first place, you get all this other good stuff for free. All this other help to run your projects comes out through all of the other software products. So I'll hand over to Matt just a mo, so he can talk us through what actually happens here.
Okay, so hi everyone. When you're actually looking at the 5 packages we have here, as you can see, we have our planning, estimating, contractual, project management, and health and safety package. Now, it's not essential to have all 5 packages, so let me make that aware. You don't want to cost yourself out from the very beginning. But what is very important to have a look at is that sole one in the middle, the estimating software. That is the package that's actually going to be helping you calculate your jobs, looking at how much you're going to be spending on your labor, your lead times as well, and what you're going to be handing over to your client afterwards. Above that, we have our planning software, which is actually one of 2 steps, really. If you're going to be a design and estimating company, what you can do is you can actually offer planning application and building regulation drawings for your client. Not only that, if you are going to be working closely with an architectural firm, what they can do is they can hand you over their plans, and they can then trace over those plans and import that to the estimating software, and it will give you an automatic cost of that job. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the estimating package will generate a quote for you, something for you and your client to agree on price. However, that is not a legally binding contract, even though you do have each other's signatures. So what we have created for you as well as a contractual package. Now, we've actually worked with a legal firm within the centre of London that works specifically in construction to help generate these contracts for you, to help create a contract that is legally binding, as I've said, but also looks after you as the contractor. Okay. From there, we then have on the other side your health and safety software. This is your risk assessments, your cost sheets, but not only that, all the legally needed documentation that you're going to have on site, such as your audit checklist, your scaffolding certificates as well, your breach of health and safety. You want to make sure that these are going to be documented so you can at least look back over the previous job and then look forward to what you're going to be doing differently next time. And then lastly, you have your project management package, which we're going to be looking at the very end. And that will actually allow you to start looking at your cost variances, how long the job's going to take. This is actually going to take into consideration the bank holidays that we're going to be coming up against as well, and the likelihood of whether anything that does can and will change on site, which is whether you have enough men to cover a certain build phase, or if you have multiple jobs running at the same time. So this is what we're going to be looking at today.
Okay, cool. So in summary then, we've got Plans Express. So Plans Express is the CAD software, as we've been talking about. That's going to help you potentially offer a design and build service so that you can win better work with 3D models. It'll also help you save money on outsourcing to a local architectural technician or architectural practice that you use. You can offer that in-house. It can also then, if you have changes from clients or from planning, you can then respond quickly. You can actually make those changes yourself. You can also use Plans Express to undertake takeoffs, so you can actually trace existing plans. And I know a lot of people who will be listening will say, well, I didn't really start plans from scratch often. I often get the PDF building plans that my client has sent me, and I'm just building off plan. Well, that's absolutely fine. In order to kind of digitize that plan, get the information off it, we offer a cut down version of Plans Express that you can do a takeoff on it. So you're basically drawing around the design, capturing the dimensions and any specification information so that you can then fire it at Estimator Express as if you had drawn the plan from scratch yourself. And that's actually what Matt is going to be showing us a bit of today. So Plans Express then passes that info to your Estimator Express, as Matt has explained. Estimator Express helps you estimate very quickly. I'm sure you've had plans or requests for quotes sat on your desk for probably a couple of weeks. You're thinking, crikey, I need to get on with that. And it's obviously a bit of a process to do that and to do it properly. But Estimator Express allows you to do it really quickly. You can either do that through the takeoff process that Matt has explained today, or you can use our quote templates. So they give you a starter for 10. They get you ready to estimate really quickly for lots of different typical types of jobs. And then you then tweak those templates to ensure it reflects the work that you're actually doing. So whichever way you come at it, you can respond quickly to your customers and save yourself a hell of a lot of time estimating. And again, Matt's going to show us that in just a moment. So stick with us. We're getting there. And you also get your quote off the back of that with a covering letter, as Matt has explained also. I know a lot of you will be estimating later in the evening, probably the weekends. You might have kids running around while you're trying to do it. It's a juggle life right now. The software it's not going to fail you. It's accurate. So you just got to make sure that you're choosing the right kind of project information through that tracing process, or using the right template, and it'll ask you for basic information and it will do the number crunching. So there's going to be no mistakes in there. So the profit that's anticipated on the project is going to be very likely because you've thought of everything within your estimate. And also you get a profit forecast off the back of the software, and you also get a cash flow as well. So it's more than an estimate. The estimate is just the start, but all of the useful reporting tools within Estimator Express keep you organised and keep your eye on the pounds. So Estimator Express then passes that to your Contracts Expert software, making sure you get paid on time. Importantly, because there's such high cost inflation right now, we're recently been working on an addition to the software, which actually allows you to reprice the work nearer to the time that you start. So say, for example, you've got a job that you're securing for 12 or 18 months time. I mean, who knows what price inflation we're going to have experienced by then. So this will make sure that you can reprice the job 2 to 3 months before the project starts, to take account of cost inflation, to make sure that it's worth doing that job in 12 or 18 months time. There's no point in boxing yourself in thinking today, yay, I've won this job, and no cause to reprice next year, because you are going to be stuck unless you've slapped a hell of a lot of a contingency on the project. You're going to be somewhat stuffed, to put it politely, next year when you come to build. So give yourself some flexibility. And you need to stay legal. Otherwise, your contract's not going to be worth the paper it's written on. It's got to be a fair contract to both you and the client. Clearly, HBXL serves the builder, not the client, but you can't offer an unfair consumer contract. It just won't stack up in law. If you're ever taken to court over a project, and the odd one of you listening may well have experienced that, and it's a horrible process if that occurs. And usually it's on the side of the consumer, not the building firm that's got the problem. So you need to have everything documented and right, and Matt will touch on that in his demo shortly. So from there, you've got your estimate into your health and safety. This is all about early on with your project, impressing clients at tender stage. You might be asked for sample risk assessments, your company health and safety policy, your COVID-19 risk assessment, so on. Often people think, shoot, where do I start with that information? Particularly if you go for slightly bigger jobs, you're going to get asked for this kind of thing. So the software very quickly will allow you to produce that. You're not going to have to spend hours trying to pore over health and safety documents to get at that. The software will do that for you automatically. Clearly, you've got to read and review it and put your name to it, but it's done all of the heavy lifting in terms of the drafting of the document ready for your review. You need to be COVID compliant, as we've talked about. You must have done a COVID-19 risk assessment. All firms, no matter your size, if you're trading, you want to trade during these COVID times, you have to have a COVID-19 risk assessment. Software does it for you automatically. Again, just review and sign. clearly we want everyone to be safe on site, but a lot of us think, well, we're running a company safely anyway. You know, I'm not running a building company to to cause pain and injury, but you need to stay on the right side of the HSE, don't you? You don't want to visit. I guess some of you might think, well, I can't remember the last time the HSE paid me a visit. But should the worst to happen, you want to be protected and you want to have got it written down. If someone does come knocking from the HSE, you want it all documented so you can avoid fines. Health and safety expert allows you to get it sorted quickly and professionally, and gives you some peace of mind. Adrian, our managing director, found the health and safety side of running his building firm really stressful. You know, the thought of the HSE coming round and the responsibility for a growing building company with lots of people that he wasn't controlling day to day because they're out on sites all over the place, and having no control of making sure that they're actually doing what they should be doing. Health and safety expert will give you some peace of mind that you've got it nailed. And then finally, as Matt explained to us, it then passes it to project expert to help you get organized. So you're not juggling, you're effectively managing each of your projects. It might be that you have one on the go at one time. Many of you will have, 2, 3, maybe more projects on the go at one time. And so there's a lot of management effort, and you're probably carrying a lot of it in your head, and then maybe making some mistakes in doing so. So project expert allows you to deploy your team and your plant effectively, so you've got everybody where you need them at the right time, and that you're not expecting one person to be on 2 different sites at the same time, which I'm sure happens a lot. After all, time is money, as they say. And all those changes that are thrown at us, you can then put them into project expert, see the cascading effect, keep your client appraised of the impact, and stay on top of things. And as I was just saying, with time being money, you really need to stay on top of cash flow. So you can put your actual costs in against your estimated costs into project expert and see how you're faring. And again, we'll see that with Matt. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to Matt, who is going to show us the software in action. So I'm really excited to see this project of yours, Matt. So I'm stopping sharing now and allowing you to take over. Power to you.
Absolutely. So everyone, hopefully that you can now see my screen. Now, the transition, what we're going to go through today is Plans Express into Estimator, Estimator into Contracts, and then Health and Safety, and then we're going to finish off with Project Management. All right. Now, as Joe did say, and as I said earlier on, you can use Plans Express for 2 ways, either a takeoff or a new design. As we're on a bit of a tight schedule, I'm going to show you a takeoff and I'll show you how quick that can actually be. So when you first turn on the software, you are going to be greeted with this page. It's going to ask you whether or not you're going to be wanting a PDF, an image, or a CAD drawing. So depending on how your architect is sending you through that information, you'll be able to select one of the 3. Once you've done that, you can click Next. You can then find the relevant job that you want to bring in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one in. And then it's going to give you an idea of what page you're going to be looking at here. And then you can start seeing how you want to be importing that particular job. Okay, next you have there your import quality, standard, better, and best, and depending on your actual graphics card within your computer, you'll be able to get away with best more often than not. All right, clicking finish. What I can then do is I can click down in the bottom left-hand corner, and I can make this as big or as little as they need it to be, really. Now, I'm going to make it nice and small because what I want to then do is scale off of a particular size. Okay, so I'm going to click Measure Image Scale at the top of the screen, highlight my plan, zoom in, and then what you're going to find with this particular job is a dimension on the page. Now, down in the bottom left-hand corner, you will always have the software telling you what to do next. So I know that the distance between these 2 points is 3,000 mil. So I can just click the once, click again, type in 3,000, and click OK. It looks like it's disappeared, but what has actually happened is it's scaled it now correctly. And what I can do is I can now start doing my takeoff of my plan. And I don't know why it's actually came in like this, so I do apologize about that. Once you've got to this point here, what you want to now do is start looking at how you're going to be taking off this particular drawing. What I like to do, and what we do show you within our training courses and our software skills, because we do like to train you in the package, instead of letting you just buy the package and run off on your own, like a lot of our competitors do like to do, we want to go around using these construction lines, placing these lines around here. Now, the best way for me to describe these are essentially pencil lines more than anything else, because what you want to do is you want to give yourself a guideline so that when we're looking at the plan itself, I can go around nice and quickly around the corners without, as you can see me doing at the moment, zooming in and out constantly, which can be a bit of a pain, especially if you are looking at the right drawing. So I'm just going to go at the bottom here, go at the top, and you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of clicking. But at the moment, it's just saving us a little bit of time in the run-up. So once I've done that there, I've gone around my drawing. First thing I want to do is actually go around and create this back wall. Now, the reason I want to create this back wall is because we are going to be doing work to it, but we're not going to build it. Okay, so if you wanted to show what the design was going to look like to your client, you can actually trace around the entire house and the extension, but you can set the house as non-estimated. And to do that, you just go up to the architectural tab that you'll find across the top of the screen. You'll be able to click what you want to start tracing with. So I'm going to go external walls, and you can see that we have a catalog of different types of walls in there for you. So brick and block, brick and ICF through to your timber frame. And then next to that as well, we have ground floor and additional floors, depending on whether or not you're going to be digging out of the ground or potentially building on top of a garage or doing multiple stories. Okay. You can then start selecting certain heights. As you can see here, we have single story and multi-story. Difference between the two is that the multi-story is going to add on 225 mil for that joist area for you to be able to start building a suspended floor. So you do have that option available for you as well, so you don't have to do the additional calculations. But I'm going to select that single story. It will then bring up what we like to call the dimension wizards, and these are actually going to go through how you're going to be doing the makeup of your build. Okay, so you have your footing details, your plastering and decorating, and we're going to go through this a little bit slower in a moment. But from here, what we can then do is click that wall and start bringing that down the page. So we do usually have the option of being able to drag across the page, but unfortunately I've just tried to use my middle mouse button and it doesn't want to play ball. Okay, so we have this here. As you can now see, I've got these two walls, but to set them as non-estimated, I can highlight the pair of them, go up to the top where it says non-estimated symbols. No, I don't. I go to modify and selection, and I go set selection as non-estimated. Okay, set non-estimated options. Oh. So I can do that as well. Once we've done that, as you can see, the information inside of these lines has now disappeared. All right, so they're not going to come up on our quote. Going back to the architectural tab, we can then see our external walls. I can click the drop down. I know this is going to be brick and block, but we could do block and block with a render, and we can then start seeing a 3D image of this being built up as well. But I'm going to go for brick and block. I can then say that I'm going to go for a ground floor. It's going to be 2.4 to the ceiling height. I'm going to go single story as well. Once we've done that, we then start looking at the height. So we have 2.4 from the top of DPC to the roof. Now, not teaching you how to suck eggs, but when you first turn on this software, I implore you to actually turn on these tech tips and these tech label buttons. The reason behind this is because at the end of the day, you know how to work in the building game. However, we have to cover multiple different types of builds within the same calculator. So as you can see here, we've got two options available for your concreting. Now, without these, you might be thinking, why is that saying 400 and why is this saying 0? But with these turned on, you can see that we are focusing on structural concrete if you're going to be bringing in trench blocks. And we do have mass concrete as well. So depending on which one you want to do, you can then flip that round as well. Sooner or later, you'll start getting used to the processes within the software, so you won't be turning these on as much. But at the very beginning, we just ask you, if you turn them on, it'll actually answer a lot of your questions from the very beginning. You then have the option of whether or not you want to be planking and strutting this excavation. So is it deep enough to be able to not have to support this? Are you also going to be doing build overs as well? That actually does import that bit of timber work and that additional labor as well. Okay, and then we have your excavated material, and that allows you to then choose whether or not you want to bring in 1.5 or 2 times the amount of soil coming out of the ground or clay coming out of the ground that's going to be spoil to be removed from site. So you have all the power over this as well. From there, we then have your footing details, and then you have your plastering decorating options. And as you can see, we've actually combined a lot of these together because the likelihood is you are going to be doing all of these during one process. There's just no point going through the same calculator again and again and again, filling in the same information just because it's just a different aspect of that part of the build. Okay, like some of our competitors do like to do. Once you're happy with that, you can click finish, and then you can click that corner and you can come down. Okay, and now we can see that we have that there. We can then move over and do the exact same up here. And as you can see, I'm going around this nice and quick now because I no longer have to worry about zooming all the way into the corners. And from here, I can then start looking at my views in 3D, my 3D preview. I can pull that down into the middle. And even though it's just a brick shell right now, we can see that we have the shape that we want to be going for. From here, we can then start moving our way along for the internal walls. So we can see that I have an internal wall here. Feature masonry, if we are going to be doing any decorative things for our clients. Doors, windows, structural openings, depending on whether we're going to be needing that. That's not just structural openings, that is steelwork as well. So what you will find under our steelwork, if you are going to be working on a domestic setting, any structural steel beam or post that you're going to be looking for will be found within this software. So as long as you have the structural engineer's notes, you'll be able to do that. The software does not cover you to do those calculations. Okay, it's purely a selection, and then you'll be able to allocate a cost to that as well. All right, so just be aware. We then have stairs. If we wanted to start popping in stairs, flooring, roofing, we can then go into the attics, drainage, external works, landscaping, electrical and plumbing, decoration, plastering, renovation, chimneys, and fire stops as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pop in some flooring here. So I can hit the drop-down box. We have suspended floors, floor cassettes, floor slabs. Okay, we also have our screeding as well. And then we also have an option of whether it's going to be a house slab, extension slab, garage slab, irregular shaped floor slab. So if you have a triangular room, select irregular shaped floor slab, and you'll be able to go into each and every corner of that within that as well. But we're going to select extension slab. We can select whether it's then going to be reinforced or unreinforced. And again, we can see that we have our 6-in-1 of sub-base and sand. We then have our slab itself. And if I turn on these tech tips and tech labels, as you can see, we've then got the image of concrete slab and reinforcement in there as well. So we are labeling everything up for you. Is there DPM? Yes, there is. Is the overlap of that 0.5 meter? Yes, it will be. Is there insulation to the underside of the slab? Yes, there will. Reinforcement to the bottom and the top. Is it power float finished? Yes, it will be. Or no, it won't, depending on what we wanted to do. Now, as you are seeing, a lot of this information is going to be building regulation, and that's what the software is going to help you do and deal with throughout. Now, the estimating software, as I will show you in a moment, will actually generate some building regulation notes for you, okay? But it's still worthwhile just going through those and seeing whether you are happy with the information that we are giving you, okay? And we always do advise you just to ask a professional to look at those as well, but it can save you a lot of time and a lot of money, okay? Once we're happy with that, we can click Accept Defaults, and then we can click into these corners and pop that slab into place. We can then place a perimeter of insulation. We just click yes. Look at the depth of that insulation. We can click finish. And then what we can do is we can just click around the areas that we are going to be having that insulation as well. Now, instead of going through that whole process again, what I can do is I can just right click, and it brings me straight back to that previous calculator that I've used. Okay, and it's going to bring in the same information that we've then gone through. Again, as you can see, I swapped that to no, and that's already at no for us. And then I can just pop these corners in, pull it all the way down to the bottom. Do I wish to place a perimeter of insulation? Yes, I do. We've got that depth. Click finish. And then we can go around where we would have that insulation, and then we can place that there. And as you can see, it's just a very nice process about what you're going to be going around. What I like to say with my users as well is that Plans Express allows you to actually start working with very obscure shapes and sizes. I know we've got a rectangle in the box right now, so you're thinking this could be a little bit, this is out of the box quite nice. However, if you are going to be looking at angles, circles, anything like that, Plans Express does become a bit of a beast of its own. Okay, and we have all the options available for you here under drawing and annotation to start helping you with all those angles that you could be working with. Okay, and you do get training in these packages, and I do like to emphasize that a lot. We don't leave you on your own. We then have that internal wall here, so I can drop down that drawing and annotation. I can pop in a construction line to help me find that line there, but then I can go down, go into my stud work, We've got the height, distance of the studding centers. And again, I can click this here, click that box, and I can see the information is going to be up at the top here. And then we're going to be plastering and decorating both sides. Once we're happy with that, I can then place that here. All right. Once we've done that, we can then start dropping in some doors and windows. So we have our doors here. I can see that we have a front door at the front and some internal doors going around. So if I go for internal doors first off, we have our typical panel doors, and then we have whether they're going to be going into blockwork or into studding. Difference between the two is that blockwork is going to calculate for a concrete lintel. Okay, studding's not going to worry about that too much, but it does grant you the option of being able to add in your threshold strips as well. So that's automatically put in there for you. All right, so if I select blockwork, we've then got the height of the door, the width, the reveal and jam details, your plastering and threshold details, and your decoration specification. And then what we can do is we can then place that door in here as well, and we can show which way we want it to turn. And this is actually the architectural side of the software coming in into the takeoff aspect. Okay, so we can pop that one there. We could place another one in here if we wanted to, but just be aware it will calculate for a concrete lintel again. So if you did want to make sure that that wasn't going to happen, just go back to your doors, typical panel doors, but this time select studding instead, and you'll go through the details. Again, the exact same process. And what you will find with the software, okay, is that it will start helping you go through the package a lot quicker. All right. Similarly, with your front doors, we can then start looking at Crystal Direct composite doors as well. And then with Crystal Direct, this is actually a company that we work with that you have access to if you wish. Okay. It's simply a turn on or turn off motion. But what they will allow you to do is actually have their doors and their windows, their roof windows put into the software for you as well. All right. So what this will allow you to do is to contact them, see if they are actually quite competitive compared to your local merchants. Okay. And that way, then they can actually get their materials to you on site as well. All right. And they can do installation, or they can leave you with the installation side of things. And then you can go to Fence to make sure that everything is signed off yourself. From here, we can then start looking at U value, door widths, if we wanted to. We can even go with widths, including the frame. We can decide on a color as well. So I can go for anthracite if I wanted to. And then we can also look at the range and spec, depending on whether or not we want a Berea or something like this. Once we've done that, the software will then automatically calculate what kind of lintel that you would need, and it will cost out your cavity closers also. And then you can go through the plastering, threshold, and decoration details. And then what we can do is we can then place that door in there as well. Now, what you can see is we do have windows at the side here, but there are no dimensions. So if you wanted to find out a dimension of something on a particular plan that you cannot see, just go up to where it says drawing and annotation, and what we have up here for you are your linear dimensions, chain dimensions, and so on. And what we can do here is if I select linear dimension, I can select between these 2 points, and I can see that we've got a 500mm window either side. Okay, so to do that, I can then go to the architectural tab. I can go to my windows. I'm going to go for Crystal Direct again. And then what we can do is we can isolate the width straight away. Okay, so we have a 490 or a 588. Likelihood is with the frame as well, you're going to be looking at 490. We can then select a height. We've then got 290 as well. We can give a U value. We can select a color. And then we can select this window. Okay, lintels, cavity closers. And then we can start going through this information as well. And as you can see, what the software is actually doing for you, and something that you can have full control of changing once you're actually in the estimating package, is the fact that it's offering you now 3 lintels for this front door here. Now, the likelihood is you're not going to be using 3 individual lintels, so you can swap that out when you are in the estimating software to give you, again, more control. Okay, similarly, with a different type of window up the front, we can go to the linear dimension, go between these 2 points. We have a 600 window now, and then we can start selecting that 600 window going in. Okay, so again, we have that particular window. I can go for a color. Let's bring in gray again. Let's keep the aesthetic correct. Lintels, cavity closers, decoration specification. And it's a very quick drag and drop situation for you to be able to use, which does make your life a whole lot easier. Just think of it as the professional version of The Sims, if you would. Once you've got your windows and doors in there, we can then stick a roof on. And then what we can do here is we can go to our roofing section. We can select whether it's going to be a cut roof or a truss roof, depending on how you're going to be going about the build. We've then got flat roof options available, SIPS roofs in there as well. And then as you can see, we've got your PVC roof lights, aluminium roof lights, Velux skylights as well, depending on what your client does want, if they want to have a lot of color as well. Okay, a lot of lights. From here, we can then say whether or not it's going to be a 30, 35, 40 degree pitch. I'm going to go for 35 for this time. However, you can change this to 20 if you want to. It's entirely up to you. The software will do the calculations for you. We can then go through the build as well. Now, you might be seeing here that we've got a barn hip. Now, it's absolutely fine to leave that number in there, because even if we're not actually building this barn hip roof, the software won't calculate for it. Okay, because once we've actually gone through the structural timbers that we want for the build, which is going to go for the rafter centers and joist centers, we can then start seeing at the very end what kind of roof that we want to build. Now, as I can see, this is a lean-to at the side, so I'm going to select lean-to straight away. And all you ever have to remember when it comes to the roof is gable end first. So select the wall, you then go gable or width, then eaves or length, and then you can place that roof on top. Do I wish to consider a flat ceiling, vaulted ceiling, purlins or binders at this stage? I can click yes, and I can start popping in the vaulted ceiling there or the flat ceiling, depending on what I wanted to do. But once we've done that there, we can then start placing an apex roof again. And all I have to do is, if you remembered what I did with the actual external walls or the flooring, I just right click and it takes me right back to this page, saving you to have to go through all that information and putting that information in again. Okay, I can select an apex roof this time. I remember selecting the gable end first. I do width, but this time, as it's going to be teeing into the wall a little bit differently to the lean-to, I'm going to just press T on my keyboard. The line disappears, but I just have to click this wall at the back, and the software does the rest for me. Okay, and if I did want to place an area of flat ceiling here, I just click yes. Do I wish to place an area of flat ceiling? Yes, I do. Joist centers, height of the roof, ceiling, sorry, and then I can just start clicking inside here, and I can go around these corners to indicate that that's going to be my flat roof. Okay, and then it goes through the vaulted ceilings, purlins, binders, rainwater pipes, and so on. Now, there are options for you to be able to make this a lot less condensed visually. Okay, and to do that, if you just go up to the top where it says Views and 3D, what we can now do is we can manage our views. And if I just wanted to look at all the items or all items hatching off, I can select that. And what you are now seeing is the information, but all the hatching is away, just to give us a little bit more of an idea of what we can look at. Okay, and we can always turn those all back on again. Okay, but we can then have a look at our views in 3D. We have a look at the 3D preview. And as you can see here, we've got our windows and doors in there, our lean-to extension as well. All right, without going into the plumbing and the electricity in too much detail, what I can show you are the calculators that we do have following this. It really depends on whether or not you want to calculate this yourself or whether or not you go to a subcontractor, but we can then have a look at the electrical side of things. As you can see, it's a beast of a catalog. Similarly, with your plumbing as well, it looks a little bit smaller, but when you start highlighting the items, it then starts turning out and churning into a lot of information. All right, so you can either drop in subcontract quotations in the estimating software, or you can do it yourself. You can also do plumbing runs. It's entirely up to you how you want to do this. Similarly, with your drainage, your external works as well. All right, but finishing up here, if we're just going to be doing shelves, what I can then do is I can click save in the top left-hand corner. I can save this as, I'm just going to go demo. Click save here. I can then go into the estimating software, and this is the page you're going to be greeted with within the estimating package. Now, over on the left-hand side, we have your library. In your library, this is when we're going to be looking at your price books, your favorite merchants, overhead profit and inflation, specifications, data reports. Now, I'm not going to go into all of these. However, I will give you a brief description of each. Overhead profit and inflation, as Joe and I were saying earlier on, this is what you really want to have an eye on at the moment, because at the end of the day, if you are going to be paying a admin officer within your company £1,000 a month, you need to make sure that you have that £1,000 a month to be able to come out of your overall cost of the job. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do have these percentages marked up against one another. Now, we do tell our clients as well, start higher up in your percentage markup. The only reason why is because if you're starting at, say, 20% or 15%, what can happen is that when you start coming down and negotiating, you start eating more and more into that profit margin, and that can then start turning into zero, or you can be in a deficit when it comes to your actual overall price of the job. Okay, now the one thing that the software will do for you, and the one thing that we've never had a complaint on, is that it's miscalculated the amount of material that you need for a particular job. All right, so if you put in the right dimensions, the software will come out with the right calculations for you, just so you're aware. Next to that as well, we do have the inflation rate. Now, this is massively important, especially at the moment, only because, as Joe did say, in the last 12 months, timber's gone up 50%. Insulation's gone up 15, 20% in the last 3 or 4 months. Now, if you were doing, say, a loft conversion and you hadn't thought of an inflation rate at any part of that job, your immediate profit would have been isolated and gone. You'd be in a deficit for that job. All right, so these are things that you absolutely have to think about, and this is what the software is allowing you to do. Okay, next to that, we then have your price books as well. So you have your material, your labor, your plant, subcontractor, and sundry items. No point in showing you these two because these are lump sum costs that you will be putting into the final quote for your subcontractors and for insurances or anything like that as well. When you have your labor, what we've done is we've tracked labor up and down the country for you. Unfortunately, labor is impossible for us to track specifically. So what we've done is we've spoken to our users and we've asked them what are they having their trades charge them on a regular basis, and we've popped that into the software. So we ask you to look at this and then update it accordingly. So you have your bricklayers the mate, bricklayers mate, and so on. And we've got all this information already to be able to use straight out of the box. We have some users that look at this, say it's higher in some and lower in others. So it averages out across their already known pricing. Okay, but to change anything, all you have to do is just double click, see where it says update with download, and then change the price. Now, a quick bit of maths of how the software is going to be calculating your labor. We break your working days down into 8-hour days. So divide your day rate by 8 and stick that into the software. The software is there to calculate how long a job will take. So if your software is saying, okay, by the way, it's going to be taking you 20 hours to do a job, that's 2.5 days. The software is going to tell you it's 3 days to do this job. Okay, because the likelihood is you're not going to have a bricklayer on site for 4 days and go, that's absolutely fine. So what you can do here is divide that by 8. If I know mine's £250 a day, I can go £31.25 and I can click OK. Now, you have two options as to whether or not you want to click update with download. If you do that, if there's a 5% increase that we've had a conversation with bricklayers about, when you click this download prices button, this is going to go up by 5%. Okay, as you can see, the number is black compared to this one that is red. If I double click that, click this button and leave it like that, if you click the download prices button, that price is never going to change. You have full control over that. As you can see down here on my joiner, the last time it updated was the 15th of February, whereas everything else was last week. Okay, or today, it seems it's today. Look at that. I downloaded the prices today. All right. So what we can now see is from our labor, we can then hop into plant. This is going to be rental costs and wear and tear. Again, this is going to be a business overview. Whether or not you are paying £400 a week for a cherry picker, you then have your genie lifts, your mini diggers as well. But are you charging for wear and tear when it comes to your tools and anything that could potentially break or be stolen on site? At the end of the day, we are charging your client for the use of block cutters, dust sheets, shovels. We're not charging your client £12 a week for a shovel. So over a 12-week job, we're not charging 150 quid for the use of a shovel. That'd be unfair on your client, but there is maths on wear and tear for that. Now, you might not break a shovel on every job, which I hope you guys don't. However, if over the course of 12 months passes and then you do break a shovel, just know that the software has been calculating for that to happen in a hindsight. But the thing is as well, if you have a van that's broken into, if anything does get stolen, that's a much bigger deficit to have to fill up. And a lot of builders think of that as their own personal cost, where in fact you are running a business. Okay. Companies charge you post and packaging because they're running a business. They don't want to be paying for this themselves. And you have to start having that mindset. It's a very greedy mindset, but it's also a very beneficial mindset when you start getting into the habit of actually charging for things that you should be charging for, because at the end of the day, you are providing a service, and service does include tools, and tools do charge, okay, and they do cost. All right, so we are having a look at that, and we are helping you cover those costs going forward. All right, and then further down the line as well, you are then looking at how you want to be removing spoil from site. So you do have your grab lorries, your roll-on, roll-off skips, and your pure domestic skips as well, depending on the size of the job and how you want to be removing that from site. Last but not least, we've then got your material. Now, we have 3,000 to 4,000 materials in the software for you from the very beginning. Okay, and we track these prices up and down the country. Okay, and we're doing this monthly. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to help you be even more specific. So we do have accounts with sizable merchants such as Travis, TradePoint, and Keyline, others that I can't say at the moment, but we are making sure that we are going out and sourcing the right information and the right pricing for our users. Now, what we can do is if you do work with the likes of Travis, on purchase, we can take your account number. We can then contact Travis to say you have purchased our software. And then what you will find is after a week, 10 days, you'll have your prices and your pre-agreed discounts in the software for you to be able to hit that ground running. Okay. And then if you wanted to find any particular material, what you can do is you can come up to the top, use our search bar. If you typed in timber, unfortunately, that is a terrible search function. All right. As you can see, it's bringing in balustrade and nails. But if I typed in, say, C16, that's going to take you directly to that joist that you want to be looking at, okay, with the prices that we're doing per linear meter. And what you will be able to see as well, we are charging the default wastage rate on all of these materials for you as well to make sure that you don't have to worry about adding on an additional 15, 20% for wastage on particular materials. The software is doing that for you. Okay, back to the library. We then have your specifications. We can sit down with you and we train you on how to go through your specification. This is setting up how your company works in the size of the teams that you use and your default pricing for material. Okay. And then your data reports down here. What we do is we want to make sure that the information that you're seeing at the very end of the quote doesn't need to be updated every time. So what you can do is you can come in here, detail any of the reports and how you want them to look. And then at the very end of the job, at least they're set up the way that you need them to look for your particular business. All right. And then with estimating calculators, we can help you define the calculators to suit your business as well. Now, going into the actual jobs yourself, we do have the dashboard. As you can see here, these are the previous jobs that we've been estimating. And then what we can also do as well is we can then create a new job and we've got 4 options available. Okay. Top through to the bottom, we've got the templates that we're providing you. If you don't have Plans Express and you've got a bespoke job, you can then select the second options. If you do have Plans Express, you have this third option there for the import to calculate. Fourth option, this is the original way the software used to calculate. However, this is also a very quick option if you're going to be offering DIY services to a client as well, just in case you're trying to make money for old rope, as it were. Okay, some of the templates we do have, I better just show you them from the very beginning. Okay, as you can see here, we've got everything from your single story extensions to your wraparound, your multi-stories. We have conservatories in there for you as well. We have bungalows, housing, apartments, and then we have your detached and attached garages as well. All right, and you can just select this, start putting in the dimensions, and start hitting the ground running and start generating a quote for you very quickly. Now, one thing that we do get asked a lot, how do you deal with variations within the software? Before I import this job, I'm going to show you how to do this very quickly. Okay, so over on the left-hand side, you have something that says jobs. And what that's going to provide you is a nice breakdown of all the jobs that you're going to be looking at. Now, if you have a client that's constantly changing their mind, wanting to change prices, save money, the last thing you want to do is lose your original quote. Okay, because you want to be able to see where you were originally and where you do end up. So what we ask you to do is when you come in here, if they are asking for changes, highlight the job and the client that wants to have the change, and then just click copy job. What that's going to do is going to create a carbon copy of that particular job for you. And then you can start making variations to the second option. What that will allow you to do is keep that 53,573. And if it goes down to 46, at least that way, then you can have a before and after. If your client comes back and says, I thought this was going to be provided, what you can then do is you can refer back to the original and say, no, it was referred to in the original. However, the agreed quote is now something completely different, excluding that option. And it just gives you that nice plateau to stand on. Okay. But importing the job, we go create new job. We're going to go from the Plans Express import. I'm going to select that here. It's then going to give us the option of where we have to find our particular job. I'm going to bring in the demo. We can then see that this is the job that we're going to be doing a takeoff. It's going to give us a nice image. We can give the job a name. So I can go Mr. Jenkins, job description. We can type in whatever we like here. Okay, but if I start typing in extension, it's going to pre-populate for you. We have a price book. That's going to be for our master price book, where we're getting all of our prices from. estimating calculators. This is allowing us to see that everything that we bought in from Plans Express is going to be calculated. However, clicking this page next to that, it's going to allow you to start selecting options that you might not have been comfortable in taking up. Also, it's pre-selected the items that you wouldn't be drawing, such as subcontract quotations, site acquisition costs, site appraisal costs, and so on. These are things that essentially you wouldn't draw, you would just put in lump sum costs for. Okay. From there, we then have the client address and site address, so we can give the client some details. And then to transfer it all the way over to the site address as well, we can just click copy details to the site address and it'll populate here as well. I'm not going to worry about popping in any information here. Specification. This links into the specifications under your library. Okay, we do have 7 in there for you that you can doctor to make sure that it's in line with how you're going to be calculating as a business. Okay, but I'm just going to select extension specification for now. Under training, we go into these for you in detail. Okay, last but not least, mini specs. These are things that do tend to change from job to job, and it allows you to just book in a price straight away. That way, then we can start calculating immediately from a secure idea. So we can say that the brick we're going to be using is going to be £1.30. The tiles that we're going to be using are going to be plain. The guttering is going to be plastic half round, but we do have cast iron, aluminium, zinc. But I'm just going to give plastic half round. If we were building a flat roof, what would the flat roof waterproofing be? Would it be basic felt, EPDM, GRP, premium felt, fascia boards and soffits? Okay, we can then start saying whether it's going to be UPVC or softwood. The likelihood is going to be UPVC. Going a little bit further down, we then have floorboards, decoration, plant and labor for the excavation. Floorboards, we have different T&G options for you, such as chipwood, plywood, redwood, and whitewood. Decoration, you might have said yes to all decoration within your takeoff. However, your clients come back and said, can you make it a little bit cheaper? What you can do is you can duplicate the job and then just change it to no decoration. That way, then it just wipes out that price of the job, which is usually the first thing to go if we want to save a little bit of money for our client. And then lastly, you've then got the plant and labor for the excavation. This is purely based on how you're going to be getting on site. Are you going to have a JCB? Are you going to have a manual dig? Or is it going to be a mini digger? Because you could be working in a terrace house with no access. Okay, so that's going to change how long it's going to be digging out those foundations as well. But I'm going to go mini digger. As you can see, we do have these two options down here. We have the default profit and inflation in our library. However, you might be thinking, this guy, I can make a little bit more money off of them. I want to start this markup, this negotiation at a higher price. So we can then do that for you as well. Okay, once we're happy with that, we can click create job, and the software is going to import everything that we've actually done there into the software so we can then start generating and see the price. This is a nice quick process, which is lovely. As you can see here, we've got that price coming in. We can already see that it's calculated most of these. It's giving us a total cost of £27,834.17. This is excluding your VAT at the moment. Okay, do we wish to review our lintels at this stage? Yes, we do. So those 3 lintels at the front, we can change those out as well. Okay, so we can start doing that also if we wanted to. But if we're happy with what we've got, we can click OK. We've then got our profit and overhead. So our sales price at the moment before VAT is going to be £35,088.35. From this point on, what you can then do is start going into the calculators that you weren't too happy about, such as use subcontract quotations. And I can see that by just coming down here. And then we can start putting in the lump sum fees here. So we have your electrical, your plumbing, kitchen, specialist, scaffolding. So I can change this to £1,200. I can come down a little bit further and I can then start changing this to however my electrician has charged me for the job, what my plumber has charged me for the job. And then we can just move on from there as well, depending on what we want to add in as additions. Once we've added these on as well, they're actually going to come up within the job as well to give us an idea of how long this job will take. But once we're happy, we can then click back to the main estimate on the left-hand side. And then we'll have those costs in there for you as well, as you can see. To change any of the materials, all you have to do is either go down this list on the left-hand side, or you can click estimating calculators. You can then scroll down. We can find our brick and block cavity wall. I can click open. And now we can start seeing how this is going to be broken down. So we have that £14,397. We have the dimensions of the 6 walls that we were building. That's for the extension. there's those three. For the porch, it was those three. But for the building that we set as non-estimated, as you can see, those two final walls haven't been calculated, which is what we want. As we can see, I know the makeup and the build of the walls are exact. So go into the calculated resources. This information is all going to be combined together with the information on the right-hand side as well. Okay, so what I can do here is I can go to the mass concrete. We can see that we need 9.61 cubic meters exactly. However, with the wastage, we're going to be ordering 10.33. So we've already got that calculation of wastage in there as well as 7.5%. And this information on the right-hand side is breaking all that information down for you financially and quantitatively as well. Okay, if you wanted to change this from £110 per cubic meter to £100 per cubic meter, you can right-click, change the resource. The material will come up for you, and then we can find where we have £100 per cubic meter, and I'm going to be using this one here. I can double-click. We have a box to confirm that we're going to be using and calculating at £100 per 1 cubic meter. Absolutely. And then that price is going to go from £1,136 to £1,033. So the software is always updating itself for you as well. And you can do that with any aspect of the calculators and any calculator as well. Once we're happy with all the pricing within our calculator, we ask you to go back to the main estimate. And before you move on, we ask you to have a look at the resource rounding option. Now, the resource rounding can be found under estimate at the top. You find resource quantity rounding here. And then we go to rules applied in job. And you'll be able to see how the software is going to be calculating for your resource rounding, including your wastage as well. So we have your building sand. You need exactly 4.19 tons of sand. With wastage, that's going to go round it up to 5.23. But the software knows that you can't order 0.23 of a bag. So it's going to round it up by 0.7 of a bag to 6. Now you can say, yes, I'm happy with that. Or you can take full control and go, no, I want to round that down to 5. Okay, and that's going to minus £8.15 off of your rounding. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Christ, I don't want that to go down or up all the way through this job. However, even though we're minusing £8.15 at the moment, our overall roundup is going to be adding on an additional £1,300 to this job. So just be aware that we have done that for every material, and it'll take you about 5 minutes without a lie to go through from top to bottom whether or not you're happy with these numbers. Okay, but more often than not, you are going to be happy with them. You can then click main settings, add resource rounding into the job. It's going to ask you whether or not you want to add on extra boxes of these as well, because these are usually items that people usually have already in stock. So you can just have a look at these, whether or not you are happy, click OK, and then you can then click add that resource rounding. That's been applied to the job. We can see that we've gone up to 45,000 essentially before that. We can come down and we can then start looking at your build program as well to see how long this job's going to take. Under the build program, the software is going to ask you whether or not you are happy with the preferred gangs that we've selected for you under the job. So if we've got a ground worker doing the foundations, you might think, actually, no, you know what? I want to have a ground worker and a mate. So you can then select that as well. And you can change this within any part of the job if you wish. From there, we can then have a look at the foundations, the footings, and the durations of days that we've given these as well. Okay, so we can see that we've given 1 day for the foundations. And we can move on from here. But you might think, actually, you know what? I'm going to give that 2. Click finish. And we can now see that we've gone up as well. Once we're happy with that, we can click finish. We've then got the duration of the job. And we've got the information about this job as well. Now, what can happen is you can look at the masonry shell. And we can move this across if we have been snowed off or rained off or whatever has been the case. Okay. We can also pull this information from the side. So we can see a breakdown of all the information, the material, the labor costs that are going to be going into the masonry shell by just clicking resource breakdown. And we can see that breakdown of the material, the job is going to be going into, what the quantities are, what the costs are going to be as well. All right. Now, the project management software does go into a little bit more detail than this, and I'll show you what that does in a moment. Once you're happy with how long your job's going to take and the start date as well, something that I didn't just focus on, but you can click this box in the top right left-hand corner. And what we can see here is this is exactly 6 weeks from today. Okay, but what we can do is we can always push that forward to the 12th if we wanted to, and then the date goes with that as well. Okay, going to your outputs, We can then see a breakdown of what we want for the quote, but I can see that my data reports are going to be telling me under my materials by type exactly how much I need to order for this particular job. Okay, so we're going to say under the aggregate, we've got our blue circle Matchcrete original cement, sand bulk bags, sub base, how much we're paying for each, who we're getting them from and their product codes, how much we need to order, and how much we're going to cost. All right, now this is one of the best reports that you can have for bartering new costs with your merchants. Okay, because all you have to do is just take out the merchant name, merchant resource code. You can see how much we're paying for it at the moment, how much it's costing us, and then how much we need to order. And you might go, actually, you know what? I just want to take out how much it's costing us and say, right, okay, then I have an idea personally how much it's going to cost us, but I'm going to provide this document to my merchant to say, okay, then what is the likelihood of you being able to charge me a better price than $3.95 for 27 bags of blue circle Matchcrete original cement? And it just gives you that place of standing. We can also see the cost summary report as well to see exactly how much we're going to be spending on this particular job. So we have our labor, how much we're spending on each individual trade, what their wastages, which should be none, however, on a material that has an allocated cost, the cost including wastage, total cost including profit and overhead. So as you can see, it's jumped up, and what that markup is. So you can see the difference in the pricing as well. And then it gives you a nice breakdown of that over on the right-hand side. All right. So you'll then be able to start seeing this information as well. Okay. Final quote for the client. We can go quote for the main estimate. And this is going to be a breakdown of the quote for that particular client as well. So we've generated a nice professional looking quote for you from the extension for the client not provided, sorry, address not provided, but this will be documented as we've done our input from Plans Express when we had the opportunity to be able to put that there. We then have the option of being able to include your own logo. So click this button here, find it, place it on the page, click Save to Library. And what that will actually do is every time that you then click Include Logo, it'll bring up your logo and place it on the page where you need it to be. Okay. The more I scroll down, we then have the information on the right-hand side change. So we have our letters, our introductory letters. We can even include our own letterhead. We can come down further. We then have a summary of the job, including the price with VAT as well. Now, if you show summary after breakdown, what this will allow you to do, if you're sending this via a PDF or if you're exporting this page, it's going to send this page to the very back of the quote, which I highly recommend you do, because the last thing you want your client to do is get to page 3 and have the answer to everything. Okay, you want to make them look through all the details that you've been going through, all the information that you want to provide. And this is information that you can change if you wish, such as the introductory declarations of what we're going to be doing throughout the foundations. We've got imagery. We've also got some material that you're going to be using and the price as well. We're not telling your client where you're getting your material, how much you're paying for your material, but we're just saying that, okay, then we are going to be using mass concrete. This is the type of concrete we're going to be using, and this is the overall price for the foundation as well, including labor. All right. If you didn't like that information, absolutely fine. On the right-hand side, you have full control over this. You can go to the build phase. You can take out the images. You can take out the descriptions, phase totals. You can even take out the resources as well. Click apply the change, and your foundations now look at that. We also tell your client when the building control officer is going to be on site, just to make them aware that things can change in price. So we have down here, please note the building control officer will inspect the foundation prior to concreting and may require changes. It then ends with will incur additional costs if that does happen. All right. Once you're happy with that, you can then go through the entire quote. And at the very bottom, you'll have your acceptance of estimate, something for your client to sign as well. This is information that you can change on the right-hand side. And there are 2 of these for you and your client to sign. That way, then you have each other's signature. Will then lead us on to the contract software next. But then you'll have your company's terms and conditions. We do not write terms and conditions for you, just as an FYI. All right, only because we don't want to set you up accidentally with a typo. Okay, we'd rather you take full control over that. But over on the left-hand side, you do have your stage payment options. You do have your invoicing as well that we can help you with. So if I were to look at the stage payment option, we can see that the software has generated all this information for you. All you have to do is just have a look at whether or not you want to have a deposit, whether or not you want to be paid every build phase, every 7 to 10 days, your defects and liability period, whether or not you want that to be 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, 1 month. what that final bill retention is going to be as well. And you can then apply that change to this cost. Now, the one thing that a lot of builders do tell me is that they can do an estimate in about 10, 15 minutes. As you've just seen, we've done the import, we've done the cost up. However, the one thing that does take the time that the builder never really thinks about when they are saying they can give a cost over is the accumulation of information to then start ordering your materials and start seeing how long this job's going to take. Even if I was to give this as a base cost over to a client, I already know exactly how much material I need to order without having to think twice, because the software's already done all that for me. And that's the difference between our software and a lot of our competitors, and a lot of what you're doing at the moment, as well as that this is all happening at the same time. All right. So when you're thinking of, I want to save a little bit of time in the future, because you could probably write up a quote in 45 minutes, an hour, but it's once they've said yes and you're going back and then you're sitting in your office making sure that you've not forgotten any particular material, whether it be half round gutter or whether it's brick ties or anything like this, or whether it's wear and tear on your shovel. The software's doing this the moment you've just said you need it to be 2.4 meters high and 12 meters long. The software's done every aspect of that for you. Okay. So you have that, just knowing it's happening in the background for you. From here, you can then have your cash flow report as well, something you can hand over to an accountant if you're brave enough. Okay. So they can start hounding you every day. And then we've also got your invoicing for you as well. If you don't already have an invoicing package, our software can generate that for you. Not a problem at all. All right, including credit notes. And you can create the invoice to have your information, your company logo on, and so on. But once you've had a client, they did say yes to the job, what we can then do is go back, click on the dashboard. Do you want to save the jobs? Yes, we do, for Mr. Jenkins. We're then going to find where we want to save the job. And I have a dedicated folder for it on my desktop, which I highly recommend you do. Click save. It's then going to ask you whether or not you want to send over the quote from Crystal to Crystal so they can come back to you with a cost. So it does all this through the internet and through the software as well if you wish. All right, but I'm just going to say not right now. I don't want them phoning me up about some windows and doors that I really don't want. From there, we can then have a look at your contract software. So you turn on the contract software as well. We can create a new contract or open a contract or do an Estimator Express import. Okay, so with an Estimator Express import, I can click here. It will find all my jobs. And then we have Mr. Jenkins at the top of the screen here. And as you can see, it's pulled in the pricing for the job as well. All right. Once I'm happy with that, I can click next. We then have the job quote reference. So it's job 18 here, but I can set that to whatever I like. Set the contract date. How many days after the contract will the date where you want it to start? We've said 30 days as a default. However, at the very end of this, you do have a start work immediately form that your client can sign if they want you to just hit the ground running. Okay. You then have the details about the contractor. We then have the details about your client, whether it's going to be domestic or commercial. Site address is the same as the client address. Yes. Description of the works. You can give a brief description of what is going to be happening. Do both parties agree that notices may be sent via email? Yes or no. If they said yes, it just makes your life a little bit easier, makes you a little bit green as a company as well. And then nominating body for adjudication, Tech Bar, TEXA, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, depending on who you're going to be using. Okay, I'm going to click next. The box is going to come up and say, there are 3 potential issues. What this is saying is that I've not clicked into the boxes. Okay, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to click no, I don't need that. We then have detailed on the quote, services, what's going to be supplied by the client. Is it going to be toilet and washing facilities, internet, water, electricity, storage space? We then have how you're going to be working on site. So we've got 8 till 5. You might go, okay, well, it's 8 till 5 Monday to Friday, but Saturday it could be 8 till 3 or something like that, depending on how you want to work. And then we've also got days off as well. Okay. You can also save it as a default, depending on how you like to run as a company. Okay. So you can change it up, save as a default, and it will then be detailed for you as well all the time at the same time. Site restrictions. Are there any limits on how and when the site can be used? Yes or no. Health and safety. Is a client domestic client for CDM purposes? Yes or no. You can then swap that out. Who's a principal contractor? Who's a principal designer? Who have you detailed that to be on site? Or you can go not applicable on this job. Clicking next. We then have the quotation itself. So this is the price. That's going to be applied at a uniform rate, or whether or not it's going to have no VAT at all, depending on the client. We then have profit margin on prime cost sums, 5%. How long is the quote valid for? 30 days. Definitely worthwhile having that there, because if your client comes back in 6 months' time and wants the same quote, you want to make sure that it's going to be detailed for you in the right way. We then have the price breakdown and we can then see what we're happy with the costs. Okay. And then we can add on any provisional sums. If you added a provisional sum in the estimating software, that will be detailed up here as well. It saves you additional writing. Okay. From here, we then have payment terms. How you want to be dealing with the payments. Is there an advance payment? Is an advance payment required? If yes, what is that going to be? What deposit are you going to ask for them? Okay. So you can then do that as well. And then you can just start going through how you want to be paid as well. You can add additional lines if you wish, if you want to start calculating this up yourself and adding in other costs as well. All right. From there, any assumptions on which the contract is based. This could be anything from your client's going to be providing the UPVC windows and doors. You're going to be supplying them. Okay. We've then got supplementary documents, so contracted design items, estimated schedule of works, other work items as well. So you can add in these documents. So they're going to be proposed in the quote. The employer suppliers as well. Are they going to be having anybody come in and deal with anything for them as well? All right. And that can be defined by a client at a later date. And the employer subcontractors as well. And that can be provided at a later date. Now, the good thing is about this is that if they are going to be bringing in subcontractors and the information is going to be there providing something, you want that detailed within a quote. Okay. Once you're happy with that, you then have the quote breakdown. And it's going to be a 41-page document at this moment in time. Now, some people think, okay, that's a terrifying thing to hand over to a client. And in fact, you've got to get that thought out of your head. The reason behind this is because if somebody gave you a 41-page document for you to take out a mobile phone, you'd sign it. You wouldn't think twice because you think, oh, Christ, I want that mobile phone. Whereas if somebody hands you over a 41-page document on a 80, 90,000 pound job on your house and you're deterred by that 41-page document, that kind of says something about the client, really. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you are going to be speaking to your client and you do have this in front of you, this allows you and them both to be safe. Okay, once you've clicked finish, you'll then pull in all the information from left to right, so you can doctor any of this information if you wanted to. To be honest with you, you could just click next on every aspect of that particular project at the very beginning and then just come to this page. It's entirely up to you. But then as you can see, we've got a change of works if anything had to change. Cancellation form, notice of the right to cancel, start work now. Notice of the right to cancel is a legally binding item that you have to provide your client. They have to have the right to cancel the job. Okay, just so you're aware. So you have that also. And you can hand this client contract over to a client and then they can have that signed up as well. Away from this, we then have our health and safety software. Again, just like contracts, we can do an import from Estimator Express. I select that. We can then find Mr. Jenkins, click next. The software is then going to say, okay, then what build phases have you actually estimated for? So we've got completion, electrical first fix, second fix, external decoration, foundations, footing. So it's pulling in all the information that we've calculated for so it can associate the relevant risk assessments and cost sheets for the materials that we've selected and for the works that we're about to do. And then we're going to create a folder for it somewhere on your desktop. Once we're happy with that, we then have the information from our health and safety software. Okay, so firstly, it's going to tell you about the actual job itself. Okay, once it's loaded up. So what we have here, we have a project name, a project reference, the client details, and the site address. This is all information that will be pulled in from the job. Okay, you then have your building company, that's going to be me. Then you have your health and safety director, principal designer, and principal contractor. On your first time of using this information, you'll be clicking this little icon on the right-hand side here, where it says browse for contacts. And what you'll be able to do is over on the right-hand side, you click add, and then you'll be able to provide the information of your contacts as well, whether or not they're going to be contractors, clients, HSEs, risk assessors, and so on. Okay, designers and all sorts. That way then what you can then do is when it comes here, you can click the drop-down box and you'll be able to find whoever would be that person within the business and covering this particular job. What you will find as well is we do have the HSE here. If I click this drop-down box, you can clearly hear by the accent it's Bristol, so I can select Bristol. However, you can click this little icon on the right-hand side, and again, what we've done for you is we've chased down all the HSE information from counties and areas as well. So I can easily go with Cardiff, select OK for this time, and then we have HSE Cardiff, government buildings. I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but you can see that we've done our details. All right. Beneath that as well, we then have some relevant information for you to be able to find from the HSE website. Okay, so that's how to implement the HSE Plan, Do, Check, Act approach, HSE in construction, responsibilities and duties for various roles. So if you sat there going, okay, I'm still learning about health and safety, what does the principal designer mean? What does the principal contractor mean? You can click this and it'll take you directly to their website and tell you exactly what each account means. Okay, so it just helps you as well. And this information is direct from the horse's mouth, as it were. So if it's wrong, it's their fault, technically. All right, so you can't point the finger at us for that one. Once you're happy with all the information you have here, you then have your health and safety policy. Okay, so this is about a company employing 5 or more persons has a legal duty to prepare a written health and safety policy. Now, whether or not you're employing 5 or more people, it's always good for your company to have a health and safety policy, because if you're having a plan to expand, it's there already. And every time that you employ somebody new, you can update it. It's already there. Not only that, I have a conversation with my clients as well about having a general health and safety policy with, and I know it says company name and health and safety director's name there. That will be pulled in when you print this from the project detail. Okay, but this is actually a nice page to have embedded into your quote. So what you can have, and what we do talk to our clients about, is how you can provide your quote to your client. And it's good to have your public liability insurance certificate in there as well, just a copy of that, a general policy health and safety. You're making yourself a little bit different to your clients. Okay, your competitors, sorry. That way then your client can be able to see, okay, then this guy does have insurance. They are looking at health and safety as well. They are covering themselves for this. You can even provide your client with that project management Gantt chart, but take off the date. So you can say, okay, then this is how long the job's looking to take. But not only that, this is within how the job's going to go along. So they have an indication of how the build actually goes, give them a not control, but it's just more involvement, just allowing them not to feel that they're just another number for you. You want to make sure that it's, again, that customer service interaction as well, what we were talking about. All right. From there, you then have the organizational chart from managing director, the contracts manager, the site manager, the contractors and employees. Now, if you click managing director, this information will be broken down into what is a managing director's duties, and you can see them on the right-hand side. And what you can then do is you can always add subordinates, co-workers, and all sorts from this as well. And you can generate a nice chart to show the responsibilities and duties of whoever is within your company and what is expected of them as well. So you don't have to only use this for health and safety within your office. You can have this broken down to have anybody that you do employ that's new, admin, administration, to give them an idea of what their responsibilities are within your business as well. Okay. From there, we can then have a look at the pre-construction information. And this is information that you're going to be looking at before the job starts. So project description, key dates, proposed use of the structure, existing records and plans, and client brief. This is information, and a lot of this information and the pre-construction information will come from the designer and the architect. They have the legal obligation to have to provide you with their health and safety, but they also have the right to state where their health and safety stops. And it usually is when you break ground. All right. But then you have to have a look at how you're going to be communicating with your client, the site security on site, the welfare provision, the height hoarding requirements. So how are you going to be storing materials and everything else on site? Is it going to be going away with you, or is it going to be staying on site? You also want to look at emergency procedures and means of escape. This is information that we've actually got under your management documentation of how to go through a fire plan and everything like that as well, and how to deal with a site induction. So you can go through these options as well. Boundaries and access, restriction on deliveries, adjacent land usages. You'll be able to see this from viewing the actual site itself. Existing storage of hazardous materials, existing structures, previous structural modifications. Again, this is information that you will be able to see on the architect's notices. Okay. Ground conditions, underground structures, and watercourses. This is a lot of information, again, that you will get from an architect. All right. But again, it's something that you want to fill in. And don't be afraid to actually write not applicable or NA when it comes to this information as well. Only because if you're looking at fire damage, ground shrinkage, movement or maintenance, this could be due to a insurance type job. All right. So you don't really want to be filling this information in if it has nothing to do with insurance or anything to do with that aspect. So don't be afraid to write not applicable, because it just might not be when it comes to your site. Jumping from the pre-construction information over to the construction phase plan, we'll just hop back to the risk assessments in a moment, but you'll be able to see that they're quite similar, but they again go into more information about the actual site itself and your company and what's going to be happening on site as well. So you've got your key dates, structural, existing structures, ground conditions, existing traffic systems. Okay, we then have the management structure. How is everything going to be communicated on site? Health and safety goals. As you can see that we've done a lot of writing for you. Okay, we've done the declarations on your health and safety at work acts. And as you can see under the construction phase plan, we've done a lot of writing for you. Now, what we ask you to do is just have a look at what we've written, because you can leave that in there, okay, but just add on to it depending on the type of job you're working and if anything is site specific. Okay, but we have helped you write all this information. Okay, and we've even given an indication of what forms you're going to be needing to use as well when it comes to site inspection, site audits, and so on. We can then go further down. We can have a look at the site security, site induction, on-site training, welfare facilities as well, first aid, site rules, fire and emergency procedures, so the fire plan, which can be found on the management documentation. We then have information about the client, the principal designer, and principal contractor. That would have been pulled in from the project details that we detailed at the very beginning. Additional designers and additional contractors, depending on what we're going to be using. Local authority environment agency. As you can see, we've got Cardiff used, but I've got Bristol City Council in the background using that. And then we've got different environmental agencies as well. Again, click this item. You'll be able to find your relevant environmental agency. We then have who are supplying the houses: gas, electricity, water, telecommunications, cable and wireless, and traffic control, fire, hospital, and police. This is relevant information because if you break a gas line, the last thing you want is your guys patching it up, because that can make you liable. You want to contact whoever's supplying that household with their gas. Tell them, okay, then by the way, we've broken a gas main, so they can send their engineers out. So their insurance is then not going to be voided or anything like that. So you have that option available. Same with the electricity and water. Not only that, we then have fire, hospital, and police, only because if there's a fire, where's the nearest fire station? If somebody gets hurt, where's the nearest hospital? Something gets stolen, or if there's a grievance on site, where's the nearest police station? Okay, and then we can start going into more details about controlling significant safety risks. Okay, and then health risks as well. Hopping away from the construction phase plan, we can then go back into the risk assessments. So as you can see, we have a catalogue of risk assessments here for you. We do follow a traffic light system. So red's bad, obviously, green's good, which is helpful. If I go into, say, let's look at excavators, excavations. That's a good one to look at. I can always look at premium, and it brings it up nice and big on the page. At the very top where it says health and safety expert, something I didn't show you on the project details is that you can swap this logo out to show your own. We can then go through the detail of what the activity is going to be, what the hazards are, what the risks are going to be involved, what the pre-control risk ratings are. So 6 and 6, you times those together to get 36. 36 is obviously a bad number. And then we have our control measures, the post-control risk ratings, and any comments about that. Going back to these numbers, we do have a key beneath this as well for exposure ratings and severity ratings. So 1 is highly unlikely and trivial, okay, to continuous and multiple fatality. Now, the likelihood is if you follow all of these control measures for your excavation, it goes from 6 and 6 to 1. Okay, and that's what we want to do. We also tell you to look at other risk assessments, such as falls, ladders, confined spaces of work that could be linked into what you're looking at on your particular site. However, you can scroll down and then you can look at services cutting into underground electricity cables. And as you can see here, the number isn't 1 because no matter what, there isn't going to be a purely safe way to deal with this. Okay, you could always say, okay, then the electricity wires are meant to be here. You can go down and still find some anyway. Okay, because things do move underground, whether we like it to believe it or not. All right, so there's always going to be that risk, but it's still safe if you're following these procedures. And once you're happy with that, just make sure that your site manager is signing and dating this information. But this will also link into your management documentation under acknowledgement of risk assessments, making sure that your guys are signing off on the acknowledgement of the risk assessments that you're providing. Okay, going down, as Joe did say, when it comes to your COVID-19, you have to provide a health and safety risk assessment for COVID. Okay, so we have workplace on site and in your office as well. And if you go to the COVID-19 control, you can see that we have a 16-page document on COVID-19 control measures that you can provide to your site. Now, it's definitely worthwhile having a conversation with your local HSE office as well and asking them what can be provided digitally and what needs to be printed off. And they'll give you an indication of what can be used in a digital format and what can be used in paper format, because as again, this can be a lot of printing. So you want to make sure that you are providing the right information and printing off what is absolutely necessary. Okay, so just speak to your HSE about that. All right. Going from the risk assessments, we can then go to the cost assessments. And then we can have a look at what's happening under your cost assessment as well. And we have in the breakdown on the right-hand side here, substance, application, people at risk, controlled ingredients, hazards, how to store it, how to deal with the first aid side of things, and the risk and safety phrases. What you will find is that if there's nothing written here, don't worry about it. If there is ever a change in the industry and then we need to write something there, your software will be updated every time that you turn the package on. Okay. And that will then finally have something written there. But if it's empty, there's no need for it. All right. However, under controlled ingredients, you might be using additional ingredients within this Portland cement. And if that is the case, to have it detailed on your quote, just look at the top where it says edit. You can click that there. You can then start looking at hazardous substances. Click the add button, and then you can start adding in additional material. So if it's going to be this chemical here, I'm not going to say the word. Click OK. It's then detailed for you and how you're meant to use it. Click OK. It's then going to reload your page, but this time we now have that in there for you as well. All right, so that's detailed. Similarly, with your risk assessments, if there's anything specific to your particular site, just go up to the top, click edit. Don't delete anything that we've written. However, add in additional information that you find necessary for this particular site. All right. And what the software will do and can do for you is save all this information as a default. So it's always going to be detailed for further projects going down the road. All right. So you have that option as well. When it comes to your method statements, unfortunately, we cannot write method statements for you, but we have given you the template to be able to follow. Okay. So you then have your introduction, description of the work, location of the work, access requirements, licenses, permit to work, responsibilities for the safety and control of monitoring, personnel on site, storage of materials, plant and equipment, hazards identified, cost assessments, noise assessments, risk to third parties, dealing with the environment, first aid, PPE, emergencies and incidents, how to deal with those, welfare facilities, methodology, briefing arrangements, drawings and sketches, and other information. Drawing and sketches, if I create a new one, as you can see down at the bottom, a picture sometimes tells 1,000 words. So what you can do is you can just add in additional imagery down here. Okay, so you can do that as well. Just make your life a little bit easier going forward. From here, we can then start looking at the toolbox talks and the management documentation. So toolbox talks are clearly for those guys on site that aren't really geared up or knowledgeable about certain items that you just want to make sure that they are signed off on. This could be dealing with health and safety on site. It could be powers of the HSE. Why do we do health and safety? This is a very important one to look at, okay, because this might make sure that you guys, more senior guys that still do like to have a laugh, might be thinking, right, okay, the reason why we're asking you to sign this, even though you hate the paperwork, is because of this. They will. And as you can see, they can, they may, they will, they make. Okay, this is very demanding information that they will be able to get from you. And if you don't have that information, they have the right to shut your site down. And that's the last thing you or your client wants. All right. But not only that, you do have information about first aid, how to deal with first aid on site, how to deal with stress and mental awareness on site as well, something that's very big in the industry at the moment. Okay. And we have all of these here for you to be able to use and look at and make sure that you are up to date on dealing with all of this information. All right. So we want to make sure that you guys are happy and safe on site. And as you can see, we do have, again, a large catalog of this information. Once you are happy with this, and they have read through these items, they've gone through questionnaires with you as well, you can then sign them off on a Toolbox Talk register just to say whether or not they are happy with this and whether they have been included in that information. Now, it's a horrible thing to say, but at the end of the day, health and safety, especially as a business owner, is more down to you providing the relevant PPE. The restrictions are in sight, but a lot of it is down to signatures as well. And it's a terrible thing to think about, but I have a lot of conversation with builders on a regular basis, my old man as well. And at the end of the day, if you have somebody's signature, it's going to stand up a whole lot more for you when you're not on site, and if they are themselves, or if they've done something daft and they try to pull the finger and point the finger at you. Okay, so look at this acknowledgement of the risk assessments. As long as you have their name, CSCS registration number, signature, date, that they have read these the risk assessments that are detailed in front of it, and this is attached to those risk assessments as well to make sure that it isn't going anywhere. Okay, that way then at least if anything came around and they went, well, I never knew about these risk assessments, but you have their signature, you can easily turn around and go, actually, if they've tried to sue you or anything like that, you can say, right, okay, then the relevant PPE was provided. And not only that, you have looked at the risk assessments. This is your signature. This is your CSCS number as well. And then they won't really technically have a leg to stand on. It's a terrible thing to say, but at the end of the day, we need to protect you as a business owner because unfortunately, social media especially is singling out a lot of building sites. The one thing the HSE is looking at when it comes to those social media pages is the image of somebody's company name in the background. If they see your company name in the background of a video where somebody's running around, jumping down chutes and flutes and all sorts, okay, they have the right to be able to say, okay, we've actually got information and we've got video footage of you doing that. We can shut your site down. We can give you a hefty fine. Okay, so that's the last thing that you need. All right. But then going through there, we then have your PPE registered to make sure that everything is safe on site, keeping this on site and make sure that everybody is signed off on it. Plant inspections, site rules, fire plans as well. Accident investigation reports, toolbox talk register, as we've already said. We can go down to the breach of health and safety procedures as well as anybody just taking the mick too much. All right. And this is all the relevant information. This is probably more important to have on site than your actual risk assessments, because this is the information that makes sure that everybody is signed up and happy with where and how they're working. Risk assessments, they can be kept in a document in the office. Okay. And that can be provided after everybody's signed off on them. Okay. So you can keep them in a safe place. Whereas this is information that you will want to make sure that is on site every day to make sure that everybody is signed off and has access to it. All right. From there, we then have your health and safety file. This is information that if you're going to be working on a larger site, filling this information into the builder after you is going to have access to the information that you've dealt with and what's not been eliminated through the construction process. All right. So you can look at key structural principles, hazardous materials, information regarding the removal of dismantling of installed plant and equipment. So this is the information that a builder can go on site, read and go, right, okay, then this has been dealt with. This hasn't been dealt with. Okay, then let's have a look at what can be dealt with. All right. So you have a lot of dealt with. And then lastly, we then have a view. This is the difference between the plus and the premium version of our software. And this is where we can really help you with your health and safety. Okay, so we do have that plan, do, check, act approach. And as you can see here, if I were to click an item, such as risk profiling, you'll be able to see the documents that you need within these items. All right, we can then have a look at the HSG 65 timetable. So we have the plan, what to look at, the do, the check, and the act approach. Okay, so this is everything from investigating incidents through to learning lessons as well for you as a business owner. Okay, we can look at the construction stage view. So we can then have, the construction stage view is day 0, pre-construction, construction phase, reviewing. And we've just detailed everything you need to have a look at as well, including all the relevant risk assessments that are going to be viable to you and your particular build as well, if they're necessary. Okay, you might not be welding. You can leave that one out. Okay, so that's not a problem at all. But lastly, we've then got your Gantt view, and we can see that under the masonry shell, if I click this, you'll be able to see that the information on the right-hand side will change because it's detailing different risks that can be involved with the masonry shell compared to what you can deal with the foundations. Okay, by the time you're dealing with the masonry shell, you won't be dealing with potential bombs in the ground, whereas foundations, that will be something that we do have a risk assessment on. Okay, so you have that to be able to look at as well. Lastly, your project management. When you're looking at your project management, you are now looking at the Gantt chart process. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to import from Estimator Express. So I can select this from. We have Mr. Jenkins. We can click OK, close, and then we have how your job's going to do, including a beginning date as well from the 12th of July. Now, what we can do is we can then set up and make sure that the critical path is correct. And what the critical path means is essentially you cannot start one build phase without finishing another. Okay, or potentially without having done so much within a particular build phase. So we have external decoration, landscaping completion. These aren't part of our critical path because they're missing these arrows that you might be able to see on site. So what we want to do is we just want to hover our mouse between one and the other, hold the left mouse button down and go, okay, landscape can start after external decoration. You're going to be able to see this move as well. Similarly, with landscaping to completion, once the landscaping is done, we can then deal with completion. Once we're actually happy with this information as well, structural openings and masonry shell do need to be looked at as well. So we can always go start to start. So they're in the exact same place. What we can then do is we can set what we call a baseline. And what this baseline allows us to do is under progress, say this is when we are exactly finishing this particular job. However, the masonry shell might be rained off 2 weeks, where we were meant to be compared to where we are, or something completely different. Also, what this allows you to do is moving these build phases is showing what isn't connected to this construction line as well. Okay, so what we can then do is we can then start pulling this information in as well between the two items. Again, doing that, dragging from start to finish. Oh, no, that's not that one. I can ignore that one there, but then we can just start going from plastering to electrical finish as well. And we can pull that information in as well, depending on what we want to do. All right, but once we're happy with that, we can then start looking at what information we want to actually have a look at. So over on the left-hand side, we have the breakdown of the build phases, and we have duration, start date, finish date, and the build phase. Okay. What we can then do is if we right-click up here, we then have this option and the activity table come up. This is where a little bit of OCD does build in because we have columns here, but we have rows here. So just flip them. All right. But what we'll be able to do is under this drop-down box, we then have monumental aspect, what you can actually look at. So we can then see, if I scroll down, I can go to estimated labor costs versus actual labor costs. And then what I can do is I can then drop in a cost variance. All right. And what we'll be able to see here is once I've clicked that, this information will come up. Be able to make these just a little bit bigger, and we'll be able to see now what we are calculating for this particular jobs against what we're actually paying for these items as well when it comes to your labor. All right, I can then add in material costs as well, plant and so on. But what I can then do is I can come to the masonry shell or the foundations, go from the very beginning. I could double click here, and we can then start looking at the resources. Okay, and we've got our ground worker's mate. We've calculated him for 5 hours. The ground worker himself for 20 plus hours, and then they're going to be ground worker and a mate dealing with, again, 20 plus hours. All right, so what we can now do is we can start looking at how we're going to be calculating this and how long they're actually dealing with certain jobs. Okay, so what we can say here is actually under the hours, under actual units, instead of it being 20 hours, it's going to be 27 hours. Okay, we can also have a look at the next job from 29 hours to 35 hours, say. But once you've gone through this information, you can then click OK. And what you can now see is with that, we are now down currently £342. And what this is going to do is over the course of this job, when you start filling in this information, this will start totaling up and you'll see the price at the very top. So whether or not you're in profit or whether you're down on your pricing. Okay. What will also happen is when you've imported more than one job down here, you'll be able to see whether or not you have enough men to cover your site. So I can always click bricklayers and we can see that we have enough men on site. Carpenters, right, we don't for the work that needs to be done. So what I need to do is I need to find out whether it's just a singular joiner and a mate, or his mate. So the joiner and a mate is fine. Right, okay, then so we've got the joiner and a mate here. And what we can see here is if I double click, you can see that we've got 39 hours worth of work. Is it enough? So we can then start coming in and saying, okay, then let's go up to, say, 48 hours. Let's give them an extra day, technically. Click OK. Right, that's not enough. Right, we need additional staff. So what we can then do is say, right, okay, then let's see if we can change how many we have to, say, 2 joiners and a mate. That's fixed our issue. Okay, so now we can start thinking of, right, okay, then did I want to move the build phase, or did I need to have extra staff on site? And this is what the software is going to allow you to do. And if you have multiple jobs running side by side, that's going to allow you to take more control from a business perspective. And what that's actually allowed you to see is everything from the planning stage all the way through to the project management side as well, for when you've actually dealt with your client. Okay, and I shall hand you back to Jo. Jo, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your amazing flow there. Wow, we've covered a huge amount of ground there. So I don't know if you want to stop your screen share there, your end.
Absolutely.
I will finish our side. Okay. I think you'll all agree, everybody, that we've seen an absolute stonker of a demo there. But I think we'll be seeing more if you want to over the course of our coming webinars. So you can see that you can book onto our webinars that we've got next week. You can call Matt, and also you can go to the website to book in. And also we have got these webinar dates. We've got Monday the 17th, we've got Tuesday the 18th, Wednesday the 19th, and Thursday the 20th, where we're going to be going into more depth on each of these products. Those are going out live. We've got a 3 p.m. session and a 7 p.m. session. So depending on where your day is at, you can book into either of those. And you're going to go into more detail with any of these products, and you can ask live questions with the demonstrators. We have Mark Brady, one of our account managers, at the 3 p.m. session, or if you like the sound of Matt's voice, he's 7 p.m. in the evening, which is often a preferable time when people have got back off site. So that is it, other than my thanks to you listening, and my thanks to Matt as well for his really comprehensive presentation there. We've seen a lot. So thank you for your time. I hope this has given you a bit of food for thought about how you could start to run things differently. And once you've got these kind of processes and systems in place, whilst it might seem, a bit much at the first off, once you've actually really got into the groove with using the software, you're going to save masses of time, and you'll see that the information flows across all of the products. I was really interested to see, Matt, actually the Gantt chart that was estimated with Estimator Express. You're then seeing it in Health and Safety Expert, that same profile, and then you're seeing it again in Project Expert, and it's applying those same methodologies across the different processes within your business. So it's definitely saving you a shed load of effort, if not time. And obviously, your time is money. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up. There'll be a web link come up on the screen in a moment, which has the business model spreadsheet that you can download, and also a pricing for profit presentation as well, which is a must watch, and as well a copy of this if you want to go back over anything we've talked about today. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you to Matt, thank you for everyone listening, and we will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you ever so much. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Bye-bye.